In the quiet kingdom of Loria, nestled between glistening rivers and starlit skies, lived a young princess named Ivy. She wasn't like the other princesses of fairy tales. She didn't care much for fancy shoes or grand balls. What Ivy loved most were flower sand, not just any flowers, but glowing ones that only bloomed beneath the moonlight. Every evening, after the sun dipped behind the silver hills and the stars began to twinkle, Ivy would sneak out of the palace and tiptoe to the royal garden. While everyone else in the kingdom slept, Ivy would sit on the soft grass and watch as her moonlight garden came to life. There were shimmering star tulips that opened only after dark, glowing dandelion clocks that drifted like fireflies, and soft blue roses that hummed like lullabies. The garden felt like a secret world, hers and hers alone. Ivy always brought a little notebook where she drew the flowers, gave them names, and whispered her dreams to them. She dreamed of making the garden grow even bigger, of sharing it one day with someone who truly loved it like she did. But the older Ivy grew, the busier the palace became. Her lessons were longer, her dresses were heavier, her tiara always needed adjusting. And worst of all, her moonlight visits became fewer and fewer. "Ivy, you'll be queen one day," her father reminded her. "You must learn to lead, not sneak around with dirt on your dress." So, Ivy stayed in. She studied court politics. She practiced walking without wrinkling her gowns. But at night, she missed the garden. Sometimes, she pressed her face against the window and hoped to see a flicker of moonlight on the petals. But the garden seemed to fade, little by little, as if it too had gone to sleep. One especially quiet evening, Ivy couldn't take it anymore. While the palace snored and the moon peeked from behind a cloud, she tiptoed down the marble hallway, barefoot and breathless, and slipped outside. The air smelled like silver and dreams. But when she reached the garden gate, she stopped. The flowers were gone. The glowing tulips, the humming roses, the floating dandelions vanished. Only wilted stems and patches of moss remained. "No," Ivy whispered. Her heart squeezed. She knelt down and touched the soil. It was cold and quiet. Her fingers brushed something small, a single, half-closed blossom. Its petals were pale blue, barely glowing. "I'm still here," the flower whispered softly. Not with words, but in a way that Ivy could feel in her heart. Tears welled in her eyes. "I'm sorry," she said. "I stopped coming. I forgot." The flower trembled gently in the breeze. Ivy took a deep breath and stood up. Not all was lost. She ran back to the palace and rummaged through her old chest. Inside, she found her moonlight journal, a small silver watering can, and a packet of magical seeds she had forgotten she saved. Seeds from the last moon bloom harvest. Seeds that only bloomed with love and patience. She returned to the garden and began to work. For many nights in a row, she visited. She sang lullabies to the soil. She planted the seeds by hand and whispered stories to them, just like she used to. She watered them with moondrops collected from the palace balcony, and she sketched new designs for the flower beds in her journal. Slowly, the garden began to wake. First, a flicker of light beneath the ferns. Then a soft hum from the roses. Then came color shimmers of violet and silver and gold. And then, something new. In the center of the garden, where Ivy had never planted anything before, a strange glow began to rise. One night, Ivy followed it, heart pounding. At the very center, surrounded by soft moss and blooming stars, stood a moon blossom tree doll, silvery and glowing like the moon itself. Its branches reached toward the sky, and its petals lit up the entire garden. "I didn't plant this," Ivy whispered. But the garden whispered back, "Yes, you did, with your heart." The next morning, Ivy invited her parents to the garden. They followed her silently, unsure of what to expect. When they saw the moon blossom tree and the glowing flowers, their eyes widened. Ivy, her mother breathed. It's beautiful. I didn't do it alone, Ivy said. The garden remembered me. I just had to remember it. From that day on, the Moonlight Garden became part of the royal life. Ivy hosted story times under the glowing tree. Children came from all across the kingdom to wander through the blooms. Even the king and queen would visit after dinner, walking hand in hand under the stars. But Ivy never let the garden become just a place for parties or show. It stayed a quiet, magical spot for dreamers and wonder seekers, for anyone who needed a moment to remember the beauty of something simple and soft and glowing in the dark. And every night, before she went to bed, Ivy would visit her moon blossom tree, sit beneath its silver petals, and whisper, "I'm still here." And the garden would always answer, "So are we."